Welcome, everybody, to the greatest show where I get to show off the greatest people and have way too much fun doing it. Today, my special guest is Dr. Sanjeev. Hello, doctor.
Hi.
Thank you for
What's
being
up?
here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really love the music. The introduction music was super cool.
It was fun, huh? You guys didn't see us, but we were dancing in the background.
Yeah.
We were dancing with you. And Dr. Sanjeev is an amazing dancer. I've got to experience that, so I'm lucky.
Cassy too. Cassy too.
So, okay, the topic today, you actually had this title topic, bedtime stories that define our life. So I actually just wanted to start off with what inspired that topic.
So I was talking to someone and they were narrating their life story, what was happening in their life. Okay. And then I was like, hey, that's the story of Rapunzel. That's Rapunzel's story. And I'm like, they were like, oh my God, that was my favorite childhood bedtime story. Then I just saw that they were creating the same bedtime story in their life and the problems and the drama and the struggle that comes with it. Because think about it. Once you have a story, once you have a plot, you just have to move with the storyline, right? You just have to go with the arc. It's a story arc, and that's why it's called arc. That's why it's called archetype. Okay, and it's called an arc because there's a high and then there's a low. So it's like a parabolic curve. It's a arc, right? So Carl Gustav Jung was the first psychoanalyst. He was the contemporary of Sigmund Freud, who came up with this theory that there are 12 archetypes, there are 12 storylines that you see people live throughout history. And if you look at any drama, any story, be it Macbeth from Shakespeare, okay, or be it a legend of Indian origin like Ramayana or Mahabharata, be it the greatest story ever told, which is the story of Jesus Christ, Aristotle said that every story has 3 acts. Okay, the act 1 is the entry of the protagonist. What do they want? Okay, act 2 is how do they not get what they want.
Okay.
And it is there's an inciting event in their life, and then there's a rising action that takes place. The rising action takes them through all the challenges, difficulties, hurdles, and then there is a falling action where they fall. And then there is act 3. Act 3 is the resolution, about how they either self-negotiate and settle with what they get, which is not what they set out to receive in the first place, or they get what they actually set out for after crossing all these hurdles. Okay, so these plots or these arcs, story arcs, are fixed. And if you look at even Harry Potter, okay, act 1 is the introduction of Harry Potter, and what does he want? Okay, so he wants a different life, and how does he not get it? Because he's stuck in that home and everything. And there's an inciting event. There's Hagrid coming over with the letter, and then there is rising action. Like he meets his friends at Hogwarts School. He goes to the School of Wizardry, and then he meets obstacles. Right? There's Professor Snape, and he has to get the Philosopher's Stone, but he can't because there are these challenges. And then he overcomes those challenges, and then finally gets the Philosopher's Stone and saves the day. And then he set out to a second year. So there is a resolution that takes place. So that's a classical archetype. And then what we often do is we set out in a particular archetype, and we set out in a particular storyline and go ahead with the just auto programming in rolling out in our lives. And that can be a Cinderella plot. Okay. So I had another person whose life story was just so similar to Cinderella. She was just whining and, saying how difficult her life with her mom and sister is, just the way Cinderella would, because she had grown up listening to a lot of Cinderella.
Wow. So do people, so it, and I get that people can have more than one story going on. Yeah. But how often is it that we're actually seeking to create that story, thinking that that's the only way to get what we desire?
Yeah. So as long as the story has a happy ending, and as long as the story is fun for you, and the drama and the trauma is fun for you, you can go ahead with it. You don't have to change it because it's working for you, right? It's what in psychoanalysis, it's called a winning life script. It's called a winning script. Okay,
Oh.
so even though it's scripted, even though you're on autopilot, you have certain healthy points of view about yourself and the world around you. So you go about victorious, okay, or in socially acceptable ways, okay. But there are times when the script is directed against you, like self-sabotage, like martyrdom,
Mm,
self-sabotage, and
that
repetitive
was one of
abuse,
mine.
and lovelessness, loveless script, hopeless script, helpless
Ah.
script, paranoia, delusion. All of these kind of scripts are quite harmful for yourself. So if you're having elements of a losing script, so to speak, a losing script or a destructive script, it's only then that you got to look at it and be like, okay, I need to change something here. I need to change my life script. If you're the director of your life, how would you like the story of your life to play out on screen or in your own life?
Mm. Yeah, wow. And okay, so people might start to now look at what is my life script. They might start to like, what archetype am I creating my life from? And so from this, so identifying it is probably the first thing that, create the awareness, and then start to look at your actions. Would you say that? Like, look at your actions and where are you feeding that script, or keep choosing in that direction? And then what else could you be choosing that's off script?
Truly speaking. So
Like, I love Jim Carrey. He's always like improvise, like he always goes off script and creates something greater.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking at I was watching the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Okay, not Goblet of Fire, the Order of the Phoenix. And
Oh
then
yeah.
in that
Yeah.
that movie of Harry Potter, there's this lady who plays the character of Bellatrix Lestrange. She's a Death Eater. So there's this character Neville Longbottom who's supposed to be fighting with her, and then she has to hold him hostage, and she accidentally puts the wand on his head while improvising, and this guy doesn't realize he moves his head. He actually was deaf for the rest of the movie. So much for improvisation, right?
Shit. Oh
It's crazy. But the fun part is you can improvise on the script that you have kind of created for yourself. And when do you create the script? Okay, so we create this life script, so to speak, between the ages of 0 to 8. Between the ages of 0 to 8, there are a lot of studies that tell us, based on psychology, that children make certain decisions in their lives based on observing the parental behaviors, right? And based on whatever is the surrounding in which they grow up, and whatever is the messages that's been given to them. So is the child being reinforced that you are okay, you are important, you are precious, you're meant to be, and you're meant to succeed? Or is the child interpreting destructive behaviors, like people don't like me, I cannot trust people, I can't trust the world is not safe? Okay, so what's your world view? So you got to ask yourself, okay, what is my view about the world around me? Do I believe that the world around me and the universe around me is here to support me and contribute to me? Or do I believe that people are not okay? Do I believe that people are against me, or stuff like that? I cannot trust people and all of those things, because whatever is your worldview creates your reality. Like your point of view creates your reality, right? So
yeah.
you got to ask yourself, what's my point of view about the people around me? Do I have a healthy belief system about finances in my life? Do I have a healthy belief system about relationships? And what's my point of view or programming, or the story that I have scripted about the opposite gender? Is it a healthy point of view? Like, some people they think that I can't trust women. Some women think that I can't trust men. And then because that such a point of view is there, that's the kind of a relationship that they set out to create.
Yeah, and what's interesting as you're talking, I'm perceiving like, so that story of like, I can't trust men, but then the one man comes along that
Oh yeah.
unlocks everything.
So yeah.
So
So like
for
like
the
how
one,
like
go ahead.
like how in Sleeping Beauty, in the story Sleeping Beauty, the situation to unlock the curse is that one Prince Charming has to come and give the kiss, right? So usually people with life scripts also create some untils and exceptions. So if only they receive me, then I can be happy. So people set out these kind of curses, so to speak, upon themselves. The curse is that, so there's no external witch or a frog that's casting the curse. it's you cursing yourself into doom until this and this incident happens. So there has to be an exciting event, like there's an entry event, an inciting event that locks you into a script or that locks you into a program, and you also create an exit point. So that's why in therapy you might want to ask someone, so how long do you want to sabotage yourself? Until what? And that they might say, until the people in my family like me, or until I get approval from my dad, and until such and such person comes along. So the clause. Okay, so you usually create a curse with a clause attached. What you want to do is you want to find the clause and go into that point and create more of that. So can I give a quick example of what was this Rapunzel story? Okay, so I was working with this guy, and this guy tells me, okay, so this girl that I fell in love with, I was dating her, and she used to tell me that she used to live with her granny, and her grandma was a very possessive and controlling person, and she needed my help to become happy or whatever. So I went out of my way to make her happy and rescue her from her grandma, so to speak, and that was our plan. But on the day that we had planned the escape, she accidentally let the grandma know that I was coming, and the grandma was ready, and she fired me, and she sent me home, and all communications broke. The interesting part was she had done the similar cycle of thing with the previous boyfriend also, right? Now, if you look at the story of Rapunzel is a girl who's staying in a castle, who's been kidnapped and isolated by her grandma, who's supposed to be an evil witch. But it's somewhere because Rapunzel accidentally leaks to her grandma that, hey, this Prince Charming is coming to rescue me on this particular date. So she is meeting with the Prince Charming, and as long as the relationship is exciting, Rapunzel does not reveal it to her evil witch that a Prince Charming is coming to play with her. But the moment it gets boring, she accidentally communicates to the grandma, and the grandma is playing the game. She's playing the role of cutting off that relationship and saying, hey, no more meeting my granddaughter or whatever. So it's somewhere the grandma and Rapunzel are in a codependent relationship. If you look at the dynamic between Rapunzel and the grandma, somewhere both are useful to each other. So every character in your story is actually useful for you to create a certain plot that you have created. Now, the Prince Charming, he has a losing script. Why is the Prince Charming attracted to a Rapunzel who's a victim, who's staying inside a castle? Why is the prince surely not successful at what he's setting out to? Because if he was successful in rescuing the princess, it's a winning script. The prince has healthy belief systems about the world around, people around. But what's important, how do you know that you're caught in a story, you're caught in an archetype, you're caught in a programming, is by the statement that you say at the end of the event. At the end of being caught and the end of the relationship breaking, the prince says, I knew that I can't have the love of my life. I knew that I'm only made for unrequited love. So because, and you might think that this reality created that point of view for him, but it's actually his point of view about love and about not being deserving of love, and having a point of view about women in his life, that he picked a woman like Rapunzel in the first place. And that's so that the story can play out, and so that he can justify his point of view and say that, hey, look what I said, I'm a loser and I don't deserve love. And Rapunzel, on the other hand, her life script or her whole programming is that a Prince Charming has to come and rescue me, but the moment it's not fun anymore, I always have my grandma to play the villain and drive him away. That's her subconscious story. So she is using the grandma.
Yeah.
And the grandma's life script is, my granddaughter is not okay and she needs me. She's not good enough, and she needs me to watch over her. And we both have a contract where we portray to the world outside as if I'm abusing her, and she can play helpless victim to lure in other rescuers, and any rescuer who's not fun anymore for my granddaughter, I can always interject and repel them away. So it's a contract. Okay, so it's an unspoken contract that's there. So when I saw this story, and when I asked him that, hey, isn't this the story of Rapunzel, he was like, oh my god, that's so true. I lived out the exact story of being attracted to a woman who was Rapunzel, who played Rapunzel, and somebody else could be playing Cinderella, like you might see classically that. So I have I have dated someone who had the Cinderella life game or the Cinderella life pattern. Okay, so one of the things very prominent was, just like Cinderella had to rush back home, the person would want to rush back home at when it strikes midnight. These kind of characteristics you might see, and they were really fond of footwear. Okay, so okay, and they did not like their mom, and they thought their mom was a stepmom, and they thought that their daddy was their savior, and daddy was a good man and mom was evil witch. So it's not that very, in a very literal sense, they will be playing that, but you can see characteristics of the story, characteristics of the bedtime story playing out in their behavior, and you can understand, if you are attracted to them, what is your story that's playing out. So what is my archetype, what is my story that I'm playing out over here, and is it really working for me? Those are some questions that we could be asking.
So that would be Prince Charming, right?
Yeah, Prince Charming. Oh, I've played Prince Charming for way too long. You know, the prince is a loser. The Prince Charming is a loser because he doesn't want to be king. He can remain a romantic prince as long as he's being rejected. It's a very safe program. Being a Prince Charming is a losing program because the prince is unwilling to be a king. The prince is not willing to own responsibility of stepping up and being the man that he truly can be. Therefore, he settles for being Prince Charming, who will be a playmate, who will be a rescuer for the women in his life, but he will not be able to successfully, marry them or have a long-term relationship with them because he doesn't desire that. He desires to. The Prince Charming archetypes are people who are guys who are usually very charming and who have multiple women in their lives because they like it that way. It's their comfort zone. Again, and I have been Prince Charming for a long time until I finally decided, okay, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm choosing something else.
Awesome. And so I think that I want to highlight what you just said about the safety, the comfort zone. And it's interesting because most people would think a losing script wouldn't be comfortable, but how many of us are very comfortable losing, very comfortable not getting what we actually desire. We get what think we want.
Think about another story. Think about Romeo and Juliet, right? Why is Romeo and Juliet so famous? Because it's a tragedy. If Romeo and Juliet were successfully living together, perhaps they might have had a divorce because they had very contrasting personality types. And one of them had some borderline personality disorder tendencies. You could see that between Romeo and Juliet. So I don't think they would have had a very happy relationship if they had gotten married. Sorry to say, but Romeo and Juliet are over glorified because it's a tragedy and because they couldn't be together. Okay, and somewhere we glorify loss, we glorify pain, we glorify abuse, we glorify sacrifice. So who makes the headline? Somebody who had a life of ease, joy, glory, fun, and he's just living his life without drama and the trauma. Does that person make the headline, or someone who has a rags to riches story with a lot of drama, trauma, upset, and intrigue make the headline? So what makes the headline in your country? What makes a headline in my country, in our society generally? Why do we overvalue struggle?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for people listening to this and wanting to change this, part of it is identifying, okay, what are the stories I'm functioning from? And then that piece of where we bought it will only be unlocked from our story until or when this occurs or when this person shows up. But when they don't actually ever allow that person to show up because we're very comfortable in this story continuing forever. So that it's so just for the audience members, what you can actually do is look at this in your life and getting that awareness. I think some of us think that if we become aware of these things, then we go into like a state of hopelessness, or we can't change. Like we go into the wrongness of us or the judgment, rather than like what you had said. Well, I really got that. This, like, do I want to keep being Prince Charming? No. So I chose something different. So yeah. So how much fun can we actually have choosing something outside of our bedtime story, outside of our archetype, and trying something completely different? Okay, I know we're kind of getting to the end of time, but I wanted to talk about one more thing here with you. What do you get about when an archetype has been like put on someone as a child and then they're in resistance to it.
So that's called a counter script. Okay. So I've been
Oh,
studying transaction psychology. I've been studying transaction analysis. So it's Eric Berne, who's the father of transactional psychology. And I've been studying that a lot. And that's where these references, what I'm saying, script, life scripts, games, and all of these things. So in that, he talks about this concept of counter script. Okay. So there's a script and then there's a counter script. And then you live your life fighting the script.
yeah.
So neither is the script nor the counter script autonomy. Both are programs that you create. But what is true autonomy is breaking free from all the life scripts that you kind of have, that we have imposed on ourselves. Okay, so these life scripts, or these life positions, so to speak, are fundamentally four in nature. So the first life position is I'm okay, you're okay. Okay, that we both are okay. Like I'm okay with myself, and I have a healthy worldview. Like people are okay. So this is a very healthy life position. The second life position is I am not okay, you are okay. That's called the victim life position. I'm not okay, you're okay. And the third life position is the rescuer life position, which is I'm okay and you're not okay. Okay, and the fourth life position is called the depressive life position. That's I'm not okay and people are not okay and the world is not a good place to live in. So more of antisocial people, antisocial psychology comes there. Now, if you look at the childhood experiences of people while growing up, they choose a particular life position, okay, based on the caregivers around and based on how their caregivers make themselves feel. They decide I am okay, and they decide, or they decide I'm not okay, and then they decide people are okay, or they decide people are not okay, and then they set out creating stories, programs, automatic scripts, archetypes, and these repetitive scripts and all of these things, in order to justify to themselves that, hey, look what, I am not okay, people are not okay. So they keep choosing that repetitive compulsion of partners to date, to validate their life script, to validate the life position. So you want to ask yourself, what's my point of view about myself? Do I think that I'm okay, or do I think I'm not okay? What's my view about the world around me? Do I think people are okay, or do I think people are not okay? Because right from there originates the entire drama script, or the stories that we create.
Wow. Oh, you have so much information, so much awareness. Guys, if any of you want more with Dr. Sanjeev, please connect with him. In the description, we have links to all of his stuff. And he's an Access Conscious certified facilitator. He's a medical doctor. He's a seeker of everything. You're just truly, you have a brilliance of and a knowing and an awareness that is so unique and so wonderful. And I'm so grateful that you came on and shared what you know with all of us and invited us to something different. Okay, so before we jump into, the game, is there anything else you want to say about this?
So, okay, so I read this book. This book is pretty cool. It's called Games People Play by Dr. Eric Berne. Ooh. It's pretty cool. So it talks about 64 different life games that people play. Then there's a particular game called Alcoholic, where somebody wants to be an alcoholic all their lives, and then there's a wife that reinstates him to be an alcoholic. There's a mother-in-law who plays a certain role. There's a barman who plays a certain. So there are games. There are life games. And then there is a game called The Debtor, where a person keeps taking loans that he cannot repay. And then he identifies a loan shark who will chase him, and the loan shark identifies a man who will not return the loan, and they play a game of cops and robbers.
Okay. Yeah.
Why is it called the blame game? In English dictionary, it's called the blame game because, of course, it's a game. So games are psychological things that we play to create, and when you repeat the game over and over, it becomes a story. And that entire thing is based on a life position that you live. And all of these things are explained in this book called, there's this amazing book called Scripts People Live. Okay, so it's by Claude Steiner. There's this amazing psychologist called Claude Steiner who talks about scripts, life scripts, and all of these things. And these are very interesting. But if you're looking for something really simple, you want to read this book. It's called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I think that's the solution to all the games. The simple solution to all the games is you get to a place where I am okay. No matter where I am, no matter what's my past, I'm okay. no matter how rude some people have been in my past, no matter how hurtful some people have been in my past, people are okay. So if you have the fundamental point of view that I'm okay and people are okay, you're sorted.
You know, and that to me sounds like this, like it's really being that allowance. Like you have total allowance for you have total allowance for everyone else, and then you're not at the effect of all of the interactions in the world. Yep. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much. Okay, I can't wait to play this game with you.
Okay.
Okay. Play a game just for a little bit. Okay, so here, this is, oh, I don't think game title 7-word random convo. So here's how the game works. We're going to get a list of 7 words, and our target is to infuse these words into our conversation as naturally as possible. So we've both been texted our words. I don't know what Sanjeev's words are, and he doesn't know what my words are. I'm looking at them right now.
Okay, are you ready? I got my list of 7 words.
Okay, all right. So, all right. Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure.
And
I would like to be the knight in shining armor, which was my first word.
Yeah. We're gonna let people guess what the words are. That's great. Thank you for being the knight in shining armor, because Cinderella is on her way.
Who totally plays victim?
Yeah.
Victim with hair curlers on.
You know, and I never really identified with Cinderella as much. I was more into the martyrs. You know, like I like to play the martyr.
Mm-hmm. And I like to play not exactly always a knight in shining armor, but more like Batman on his Batmobile. You know, wearing a cape and coming to the rescue.
So good. So good. Yeah, I find now as I've been on my consciousness journey, I more like to play boss lady a lot more in my life.
You mean like boss lady with a sword who will threaten the people around?
No, like boss lady with like a whip maybe.
Oh, okay. So you like whip people around so that they, you know, the whole world might change around, that they might have to see all the parts of the world like Christopher Columbus.
Yes. Definitely not like Billy the Kid.
Okay, so I'm done with all my words.
Oh, I'm behind. Okay. So I'm going to throw these 3 in as like quickly as I can, as I wear my apron, driving my minivan while writing a love letter to Dr. Sanjeev, because I love you. You're so awesome.
Thank you. High five. That was fun.
High five. All right, thank you for being on. Please, again, guys, reach out to Dr. Sanjeev if you would like more. You can follow him. You can gain so much more from this brilliant man. And join us next Thursday for the next greatest show.
Thank you so much. This is a lovely show. Thank you, Cassy.